The Five of Cups is known as disappointment, and its symbolism is remarkably simple when we consider this is something, of course, of which we all know, this feeling of disappointment and of something having not worked out the way we hoped it would. On the Rider-Waite card we can see that our character is fixated upon 3 spilt cups. They've overturned, and all the wonderful, colourful abundance has fallen onto the ground. And yet behind the character are 2 new cups, suggesting a world of new potential, and yet maybe the character can't see them because they are so focused on this physical manifestation of disappointment in front of them. On the Tree of Life, this card is in Geberah, and it's representing, quite simple really, this fire element of Geberah having overpowered the watery elements of the card, and all the cards leading up to this point have been very watery, and now it's come into this intense heat and fire, which of course has caused it to evaporate, and it's got dry, and the element of fire has been too strong for it. And we can even see that with the astrological symbols in the card. It's Mars in Scorpio. Now Mars in Scorpio can be quite a positive thing. It's a real instinct for a powerful energy, and it's about going on with your urges and your desires, putting them out into the physical world. And yet that type of energy can get obsessive. It can latch onto things and not let them go, for example, and can become, just as we've seen, too overpowering. And if an energy becomes too overpowering of any description, it's going to be unbalanced, and something that's unbalanced is prone to tip over, such as what we saw on the Rider-Waite card there. The symbols upon our Thoth card also show empty cups, and so all 5 of the cups are no longer overflowing, and in fact you can see clearly that they have no liquid in them whatsoever. And this means quite simply that the water has evaporated out of them, because the water of which we put into those cards hasn't been what we thought it was going to be, and so in real terms something hasn't worked out for us the way we wanted it to work out. Perhaps we've made an investment and we haven't made a profit on it, or we've made a loss, or we've dedicated a lot of time into manifesting something like that journey we've seen throughout all these cards, where you get that the spark of inspiration and start putting things together and putting all the little molecules of the physical world together to make it manifest, and then when it has manifested it wasn't really that good, or maybe it didn't manifest, you just lost interest halfway through, or something came in your way and tipped those cups over and the water's gone and you have to start again, and you have that feeling of disappointment. You'll notice that the cups are formed into an inverted pentagram, and the stems of the lotuses are all coming around here and forming this inverted pentagram of the actual 5 cups. Now the inverted pentagram gets a bit of a bad reputation. It's not necessarily a negative symbol, it's merely an inversion of energy, and so the standard pentagram shows the element of spirit here at the top, and the 4 elements of which make up the physical world around us as the 4 points of the bottom of the pentagram. To turn a pentagram upside down is to put the element of spirit at the bottom and the physical material world first. What this means in a positive sense could be striving for material and physical gain, and that can actually be a very good thing. We've spoken before that we shouldn't neglect our physical nature, and when we create and manifest things physically that we love, of course it involves the spirit as well. And yet in this regard, the weight of the mass, the physical mass of the physical world, is crushing down the spirit. We can't flip this over again. It's so that the spirit's at the top, because there's just so much physical mass here having built up that again it's been overwhelmed. And so this can mean that again in our actual lives, when we get this card, that perhaps we feel overwhelmed with whatever project we've been putting out, or our emotional life. Maybe we're digging around in this physical world here at the top of the inverted pentagram, and we can't find the spirit, the spark, to start again on a new path of creation, because it's buried deep down underneath everything. And the lotuses themselves, of which form this inverted pentagram, and are shown on the card are for the first time looking dry. They are not being fed by the waters, and in fact these two at the top appear to have no life in them whatsoever. The sea in the background of the card is also dried, cracked. It represents an arid wilderness of where no life could possibly live. And since the sea upon this suit of cards represents the source of all life and a feminine, nurturing element, to have a sea that is so dry without any life in it may invoke an image of the impermanence of things of the physical world, of which we discussed on the previous card, here shown in a very real manner, and that if there was one day where the seas would run dry and no life could dwell upon the face of the earth, our entire existence and everything of which we have created, maybe these videos and our books, and everything would go unread and unwatched until our star itself in the sky would wink out, and all would be dark, and all would be lost. That world of physical form of which we have put once again on top of spirit upon this card is impermanent and does not last forever, no matter how much we would want it to. Back to the Rider-Waite card, we could see an element of hope in the card, in that if the character was only to turn around, then they would see that there was cups standing the right way up, ready to start again. This card, however, looks at first glance far more hopeless, and yet there are images of hope within this card. You may notice the roots of the actual lotuses at the bottom of the card have formed themselves into the shape of butterflies' wings. And so here we have, of course, a potent symbol of transformation, of having changed from one thing to another, perhaps representing here a learning process, that we have to go through a period of darkness in some way before coming out of that chrysalis as the butterfly, having transformed, having completed our journey into the world. We can also see that two of the lotuses here, although they are drooping and appear to be dying, their petals falling off towards this dry sea, have not yet fully died. And so there's still a chance, there is still a hope that we can resurrect them in some way, we can bring them back. And yet, since these petals have been blown by the fiery winds and they have dried up and drooped due to the heat coming from Geberar and everything we started with, if we did want to bring them back, we would have to remove them from that immediate environment in order to give them the best chance that they have. And yet, since the bottom parts of these cups here, these pyramid crystal looking patterns, are prismatic in their design, the crystal designs on these cards often representing the makeup of the physical world, the structures of molecules and atoms and so on coming together to form what we think of as solid, even though it is only a frequency and a vibration. Of course, as a prismatic pattern, it reflects thought, intention and desire, and so it's suggesting that if we do want to move these still living roots away and turn back towards our potential with that butterfly wing and regrow, then we have to start again from the very beginning with the thought, which basically has to dismantle everything again into its unmanifested femifestation like we began with, and bring it back together, hopefully in a more complete form, which again is the transformation shown by the wings and is the aim of alchemy. The alchemist splits things into their separate component parts, perfects each part, and then brings it together again, and when it's brought back together again, it is much more wonderful and much more perfect than it was in its corrupt form. And so there is an element of hope to the card. Saying that, however, when you do draw this card, it represents not achieving the goals that you set out to do so, and so you feel disappointment. You think that something just hasn't worked just how you wanted it to, and maybe you feel simply like you can't be bothered. You know, it's sort of your expectations haven't been met and you've said, I'm not doing that again. You've become disillusioned with whatever it was that you were trying to manifest, and you really can become quite bogged down when you feel like that, and we've all felt like that. And so it's suggesting that don't hide away and stay in that energy, however, saying I'm never going to do anything again because I don't want to be disappointed again. We have to move what we still have and what hope we still have out of that negative emotion, away from those fiery winds of which are blowing things away. Look at what we've still got, perfect it, and move on with our journey. And with hope, the intensity of Mars and Scorpio in this card will play their part, and your feelings of unfulfilled expectations will swell within you with a new inspiration, and you will begin again.